Welcome to my review of Comical Machine Gun Joe for the Sega Master System. And this is pretty much just your typical old arcade game that loops infinitely. So after 6 stages, it loops back to the first stage, and I believe it's more difficult, but my goal was just to beat the fucking game, and then after that, I was done. I was just going for the kill. It took me about 2.5 hours to beat. And I will leave a link to my tutorial. It's a very short tutorial since it's only a 5-minute game to beat the first loop. But I will leave a link for that. The game is very basic in the concept. It's basically just you have to kill a certain amount of enemies that constantly spawn. Once you kill a certain amount, the boss of the stage comes out, and then you have to kill the boss. And the boss is always the same enemy. I think it gets a little bit harder, but it's the same enemy. It does the same shit. It may take more hits or be a little faster with the later stages, but it's still the same shit, basically. And as far as the enemies go, there's only 3 different types of enemies, and they all look the same pretty much, but there's only 3 different enemy behaviors, basically. And the only difference is as you get farther in the game, you may have to kill more enemies before the boss comes out, and the enemies fire off their shots much quicker, and the bullets themselves also move much faster. So those are the main differences. And it's mainly, the whole game is pretty much based around spawn killing, aggressive spawn killing. You want to take out enemies pretty much as soon as they appear on screen, because the longer they linger around, the easier it is to die. So it's one-hit deaths. There's no continues or anything like that. But you do have maybe 2 or 3 lives at default. And, there's no way to set that any higher that I know of. But you can earn some 1-ups. You get your first 1-up from 20,000 points. And then I have picked up a 1-up before somehow. Maybe from the food or some shit. I don't know how I've gotten it. But I have done it a few times. It's very rare for me. There's probably a way to do that. But aside from that, it's pretty basic. But the challenge comes in, once you get good at spawn killing the enemies, which in my tutorial I recommend mostly diagonal shots and avoiding trying to do, fire straight up too often because, when you fire straight up, it means you're standing in place for a moment. And this is the kind of game where you want to be constantly moving. You don't really want to stop. So I don't recommend straight shots too often. You got to be careful when you do those because the bullets come fast in the later stages. But you see me dancing with that boss, you can dodge by jumping as well. That's one of your other moves. And you can also pick up bombs and throw those, and it'll clear the screen. But they can also blow you up if you're not careful. You got to get rid of them quickly. And other than that, when you kill these regular enemies, they turn into tiny versions of themselves, which makes no fucking sense. And if they touch you, they latch on to your body, and then it fucks up your jumping to where you can't jump as well. And eventually, I think you can't jump at all if too many latch on to you. So as you can see there. But so you want to avoid, collecting too many of them, or it will make things harder. So all of a sudden you end up in fucking Fairyland for the final stage. Really, the game makes no fucking sense, but it's a pretty solid arcade style game. I mean, the controls are good. It's just that there's not a lot of variety, so it kind of falls in line with your early arcade, games and shit like that. But it definitely doesn't excel as one of the better ones. I don't believe this was in the arcade, as far as I know. I always saw it on Master System. If I do find it on another platform, I will try to beat it, but I don't think it's on anything else. And this is a Japan-only exclusive for some reason. I'm not surprised that they didn't want to release it anywhere else. But it's a decent arcade game for the time, based on the arcade games that existed at this time. Most of them were pretty simple, but there was definitely ones that were a lot better and had a lot more going on by this point. I believe this is from 1985, and I think in 84 or 83 you already had Super Mario Brothers, which was a pretty advanced game for the time. But, I mean, there were definitely games that were a lot more advanced than this at the time. So, I mean, this would still be simple even at that time. But, I mean, it's pretty solid, but there's not a hell of a lot of replay. I would say, it gives you a nice little challenge for your first time through, but if you're really into it, you could try to get a high score, I guess. So, there is that. but I don't find the game, that addictive to where I'd want to keep playing it and trying to do multiple loops. But I think it's pretty solid. The replay is going to depend on if you like playing these kind of games over and over again for score, which I've never really been that big on. But for a game like that, I think it's pretty solid, but it's definitely not great. I mean, I'd much rather play Robotron or, many other games of that time period than this. So I would say it's a pretty decent game. I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. I think it's decent. If you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.